Hello there. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface and the columnist at the article, Ali Miraj. They'll be with us from now until midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages. And the front page of the Times first has the former Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, suggesting that those who can afford it should pay to see the GP to help the NHS. Another fine mess on the front page of the Daily Mirror as Rishi Sunak is fined for not wearing a seatbelt in a video that he posted online. The Daily Mail reports on claims from the Labour MP Rosie Duffield that her party has a woman problem after she was shouted down during a debate in the Commons. The Express warns of banks closing all high street branches in the near future after Lloyds announced today it'll shut another 40. The Daily Telegraph says there won't be long queues for Brits going to Europe as the EU delays new fingerprint scanners. The Financial Times leads with Google joining the growing list of tech giants slashing jobs. And the Daily Star has the possible secret for eternal youth. And a reminder, by scanning that QR code that you see on your screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow morning's newspapers while you watch along with us. Now, tonight we're joined by Susie Boniface and Ali Miraj, and there they are. Susie, Ali, lovely to have you both with us. Good evening to you both. And let's get started with the front page of the Daily Mirror. And Susie, your paper, so we'll start with you. Another fine messer reference there to Laurel and Hardy, but this is Rishi Sunak getting that fine.
Yeah, and it's kind of astonishing that we're now apparently so blasé about our prime ministers being fined for breaking the law that there are lots of people out there tonight saying, oh, well, it's not very important, is it? It doesn't really matter. It's only a seatbelt, all the rest of it. So it's worth pointing out, I think, that of the 1,500 or so deaths on our roads every single year in this country, about 1 in 3 are connected to the fact that there's no seatbelt on the person who's died, and it has contributed to their death. And so it's a big thing if someone in the public eye, whether that person is the Prime Minister or David Beckham or the King, who's not wearing a seatbelt when they should be wearing a seatbelt, it does actually matter. It is a big thing. And I'm confused and wondering really whether either Rishi Sunak had his seatbelt on and when he was doing the video, took it off and turned round, not aware that seatbelts actually do turn with you, or he was never wearing one in the first place. But in either possibility makes him pretty stupid. It's just daft to take your seatbelt off under any circumstances or not to put one on.
And Ali, pick up on some of that. I mean, do you want to speculate on what happened, whether he took it off, never had it on, was told to take it off by the person perhaps filming the video?
I think he was captured by the allure of Instagram and made a mistake. And I think he's fessed up to the mistake. I mean, it's pretty difficult not to when you put it out on social media, and he's been fined. It's not helpful for the Prime Minister, clearly. It's not been an easy 24 hours. He had been crisscrossing the country to announce 2.1 billion of levelling up monies to 111 different projects. He's had a lot of blowback from some of his own Tory MPs about the fact that their particular areas have not received money from that pot. And he's also received criticism from the Labour opposition as well. So it's not been an easy few hours for him. But this is a mistake. Mistakes happen. I personally think we need to be careful about how much we make of these things. I take the point that it's unhelpful. It's not right. You should be mindful if you are in the public eye to set an example, but I don't think it's something he did at all deliberately. It was a mistake. But more fundamentally, if we're going to be this pedantic about holding people in high office to standards which we sometimes ourselves fall short of, we can get fined for all sorts of things, breaching speed limits and other things. Not that I'm encouraging people to do that, but it does happen even inadvertently with some of the sensitivity of speed cameras around. What are we supposed to do? What kind of people are we going to be having who are going to put their hands up to want to go into public life? I mean, the quality of MPs that we've got at the moment, with the greatest respect, is not the highest that we've had for many, many years. And if you've got a situation now where potentially everyone's going to be looking at every single little error that you make, certain MPs are being knifed in their surgeries, or in the case of Joe Cox being killed. You get constant abuse on social media. people are rounding on you, think they own your life. Who's going to want to go into this job? So I think it's unfortunate. It was a mistake. He's accepted it. I think we should move on.
Okay, just a quick thought from you, Susie, there, because I can see you pulling a face at some of what you heard.
I think it's stretching credibility a bit to sort of compare the murder of Joe Cox to the fact that Rishi Sunak's having some criticism because he didn't put his seatbelt on. I think it does matter. I take Ali's point that you don't want to have an absolute angel in office, and we probably couldn't find one if we tried. But I'm sure that there will also be some questions being had within the Prime Minister's security detail, who, of course, there should have been a police officer in the car with him. And did you or did you not see your principal take his seatbelt off? Because that is, after the death of Princess Diana, I would have thought rule one, that the Diplomatic Protection Group say you do not take your seatbelt off in a speeding car.
All right, Susie, let's move on to the next story, Ali. We'll pick up with you here if we can. The Daily Telegraph, and this one, another story involving the Conservative Party. This one has the potential to be much more serious, doesn't it? The headline in the Telegraph there, Zahawi tax penalty could cost him job. Just gives a little bit of the background. We heard Sam Coates reporting on it earlier in the programme, and where you think this could end up.
Well, again, this is not helpful at all. Nadeem Zahawi is the Conservative Party chairman. Apparently, this tax arrangement, which involves some sort of offshore vehicle in Gibraltar, we're led to believe, has led to a fine. He's not been clear about how much he's been fined, but it's reported to be in the millions. And clearly,
Mark,
if you are Chancellor of the Exchequer... Sorry, come on.
Apologies, Ali. Sorry, I was speaking to the gallery there. You continue.
Yeah, no. So basically, we don't know how much it is exactly in terms of, but it's reported to be in the millions. And clearly, if you've just recently served as Chancellor of the Exchequer and now you're party chairman, this is not a helpful look for the party. I personally am intensely relaxed, to quote Peter Mandelson, about people being filthy rich, provided they pay their taxes. If he's paying his taxes, that's fine. The problem here is that he has been fined. There seems to have been some sort of issue with this arrangement. It regards, from what we're led to believe, how shares in YouGov, the polling company, which he effectively has got shares in, were handled. He's saying it's a family matter. It's related to his father. So we don't know the details of this. It is deeply unhelpful. I don't think we should resign yet unless more comes out and there's a lack of transparency issue. He's been fined. It's not a good look. But I don't think there's enough at the moment for him to be resigning unless something more comes out in the next few days.
Now, Susie, before I come to you, a spokesman for Nadeem Zahawi said that, as we've repeatedly said, Nadeem's taxes are up to date and are fully paid in the UK. Mr Zahawi does not recognise these numbers and he's never sought legal advice for dealing with HMRCs. To just pick up on some of what Ali was saying there, I mean, not a great look for the party, as Ali was saying, but it's more serious than that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what should be a resigning offence, Kamali, which is that when this story first broke a few months ago, Nadeem Zahawi said it was smears. He said that there was absolutely no investigation by the National Crime Agency. And both of those things now turn out to not be smears, but something that we in the trade like to call the truth. Now, wherever the full story is in the background in terms of whether there's some kind of family issue involved or not, if I didn't complete my taxes properly and I had to pay a 30% uplift plus interest on the money I hadn't paid the taxman, that would be because I had done something, what we also like to call in the trade, wrong. And you don't have to pay a fine unless you've done something wrong. So here we have something where the chairman of the Tory party, a former Chancellor of the Exchequer for about 5 minutes once, has done something wrong with his taxes somehow or another. He's had to pay a fine. He's got to pay interest on that fine. We think it's about a total of £5 million on a gain of about 3.7 million. And he not only has had that particularly sticky issue to deal with, he has misled the public. He's misled the public a lot. He tried to shut up journalists when they were reporting it. He tried to gag a newspaper or two. And it's not cricket. And those should all be resigning matters because they show someone acting, no matter what the true background may be, acting with dishonour, not only to the taxman, but to the British public.
Just final thought from you, Ali, on this. I mean, Susie lays out there some of the numbers involved. And what kind of issue do you think it raises as well with someone like Nadeem Zahawi, who was a successful businessman, but perhaps that feeling that someone paying all that amount as a fine for in the tax that he was meant to have paid does seem out of touch with the regular person?
Yeah, Kamali, on the out of touch point, I just can't accept it, because on that basis, a lot of MPs would be out of touch because they weren't way over the average wage in the country. I mean, if we're going to be in touch with everyone, we have to walk in every single person in this country's shoes. I mean, that would never be possible. So I'm perfectly fine with people being personally wealthy and having their own money. I think Susie raises a valid point about dishonor and about the fact that certain statements were made before, which may now turn out not to be true. I mean, this is something that Nadeem Zahawi should very much come clean on and make a statement about. Just in terms of dishonor, though, the bar has been set low, so low by the previous prime minister. I mean, there's no defense, frankly, for the current situation that the Conservative Party chairman finds himself in. But the bar has been hollowed out completely, to the extent that now what is left? I mean, I really do have a worry about, the quality of people coming into public life. And I'm glad that Munira Mirza, Boris Johnson's former head of policy, set up a new think tank called Civic Future to try and encourage people of some stature and quality to come into public life, both in the civil service and as MPs, because we have got a dishonourable system at the moment. And I think whilst the majority of MPs sort of go about their jobs to the best of their ability, it has really been hauled through the gutter with parties and various other issues in recent years. Patterson, parties, pincher, I like to call it the three Ps. So what is left? There is no one left in politics at the moment, unfortunately.
OK, Ali. Susie, we're going to move on quickly with you, Susie. We don't have loads of time left, but I do want to bring up this story inside the Times. Of course, we were reporting it all day. This is about that meeting at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany and the possibility of those tanks being sent to Ukraine. You know, the Brits are sending the Challenger 2, some 14, but hopes for the Leopard 2, and that's not coming yet.
No, thanks, Germany. You managed to cock it up again. So what's happened is Ukraine are expecting that once the winter mud has cleared, Russia, which is on the back foot in Ukraine, is going to launch a spring offensive and is going to try harder. Now, they've got the winter perhaps to regroup and try and get some of their main battle tanks forward. And Ukraine doesn't have very many tanks. The tanks that it does have are Soviet-era ones. And what you've got scattered across Europe are an awful lot of Leopard tanks, which were developed by Germany after the war, during the Cold War. And they were designed specifically, designed intentionally to take on the Soviet T-90s, which is what Putin's using in Ukraine at the moment. They're quite light. They don't need an awful lot of maintenance, or not a huge amount by comparison to others. And there's a lot of them handy. Now, Germany has said, we will only let you have those tanks. And even the countries that they have sold them to, they still have to ask Germany's permission to pass them on again. They said, you only let you have those tanks if other countries are also sending you tanks. And they've suggested that the US send the Abrams tank. Now, that is an absolutely massive stonker of a high-tech machine, all right? It takes $300,000 of maintenance a year. You know, about 10% of that, the tank fleet is in maintenance at any one time. It's got electronics, optics, hydraulic stuff coming out of your ears if you put your head in the turret of one of those. It is not suitable for what Ukraine has to do with it at all, and they can't maintain it. And even if they could, where are you going to get the parts from? You know, is Russia going to bomb the supply planes bringing in the spares and equipment? It's not appropriate. And so the suggestion is that Germany is just all a bit uncertain, or we don't know if we know. We don't want to be too militaristic about it. We don't want to give Ukraine tanks in case the war spills over into our borders. Well, Germany needs to wake up and smell the coffee. If Ukraine doesn't beat Putin, then Putin's going to come knocking on Germany's door. And that is Zelensky's point, which is you need to give us the Leopard tanks, and then we can beat him. You know, they need a low-tech tank, fight the Soviets' low-tech tanks. It's as simple as that. And Germany is just saying no, because either because it's scared or because it somehow just doesn't want to upset Putin. Take your pick.
Yeah, well, appreciate that, Susie. Ali, I would love to bring you in, but Susie's done the lot for us and we run out of time in this section. Guys, thank you so much. We'll be back with you very soon. Now, more from the papers, as I said, including this on the front page of the Daily Express, all about the future of banks on the high street. Hello there, and welcome back. You're watching the press preview. Joining us are Susie Boniface and Ali Miraj. All right, guys, let's just get into the next couple of stories. And Ali, I'm going to pick up with you. Front page of the Times here. We've got Sajid Javid with some suggestions on how to alleviate some of the pressures on the NHS. And he calls for a hard-headed conversation and has a plan to make those who can pay to see GPs.
Well, I think it's very interesting. I mean, Sajid Javid has done a number of jobs in government. He's now decided that he's going to leave Parliament, but he was Health Secretary. And what he's saying is that this national conversation around the NHS needs to get a lot more candid. And he's calling for a fee to be imposed for people who can afford it to pay it when they see their GP. Now, this is a sort of co-payment mechanism. We've always had this mantra, an almost religious fervor in the country, that we would have an NHS free at the point of use, and something that a lot of us subscribe to. But the NHS is in a dire situation right now, and that is because not only has it had a winter crisis for every year I can imagine and remember, but also on the back of 2 years of being overwhelmed with COVID, people are exhausted, they feel underpaid, there's a massive 7.2 million waiting list backlog, and you've also got massive crisis in social care. This has to be paid for in some way, but it's not just a question of payment. It's also a question about what the NHS is for, what it does, and whether it should be reformed. And it's not just Javed calling for fees, but also Wes Streeting, the Labour shadow, is calling for reforms in the NHS and for a conversation, an open and honest debate about what the NHS should be doing and what it should not be doing. And I welcome that. I think it's reached an inflection point now where we can't continue as we are. We spend above the OECD average on the NHS, but it's not delivering for people. And I think that that is beginning to now sort of try people. And I think that there's a place now for a national conversation about it.
Susie, just a quick thought from you, because as Ali was talking there, you were shaking your head a bit. We haven't got loads of time, but I do want you to come back on some of those ideas.
We spend 18% below the European average on our healthcare in this country. And the reason that Sajid Javid is writing this, I think, has got nothing to do with actually what's being suggested. Everybody who's had anything to do with the NHS knows that if you were to charge for cancelled doctor's appointments, the means testing for that in itself would cost far more than you could possibly scrape back. Most people miss an appointment at the doctor's because they're in hospital. It's as simple as that. The reason that's more interesting here, I think, is why he's decided to come forward and start saying, I've got a big idea, even though it's the unworkable and most stupid idea, which everyone's already dismissed. And it's because, frankly, he's positioning himself to be leader of the Tory party after Rishi loses in a couple of years' time.
And on that,
he's leaving Parliament. He's leaving Parliament. How can he do that? Sorry.
No, he's sorry, you're quite right. He's positioning himself to be. Then, if he's so busy to leave, why would he come forward with a radical idea, Ali? He says he's stepping down, but I'm certain that when the Conservative Party wants to rebuild, he will be trying to get himself there at the front.
Okay,
Ali,
just quickly,
honestly, Susie, on this one, all I'll say is I honestly think, and this is why I welcome the Labour Party also, Starmer and Wes Streeting also calling for a proper debate, because it's just not functioning the way we need it to function. And if we need to get beyond this sort of mantra that we have and be realistic and honest about it. And that's why the Times is running a one-year review into it. We need that.
Thank you for that, Ali. And Susie, just finally, this quick story on the front page of the Express. This is about a high street bank branches closing, and that'll be a loss to many people who do rely on being able to go to their local branch.
Yeah, I think this story's been running repeatedly in newspapers for the past few years. It feels like I've read it a lot of times. Everybody knows that you need to have access to banks and cash in your local high street, and most of us just don't have it. Your local corner shop may have a cash machine that you have to pay to access your money from, and therefore lots of people don't get to use it. It shuts people off, and it also means that small local businesses have to use Visa transactions, which they have to pay a fee for. So, cash is better for them.
Susie, Ali, do appreciate that. Lovely debate. Thank you both, guys. More from you later, we hope. All right, let's take a look at what the weather has in store.